During Avengers Infinity War, we were introduced to some of the Children of Thanos, but comic book fans noticed there was one member of the family that was missing. Supergiant. We barely learned anything of the Black Order, and even the marriage of Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive was only hinted at. But considering how powerful and popular Supergiant is, omitting her entirely seems like a big oversight. But what if this nefarious and powerful character was really there all along? If you haven't kept up with Marvel Comics, you might be wondering who Supergiant is, right? In the real world, supergiants are massive stars which glow incredibly bright in the sky, but in the comic books, Supergiant isn't so much a ball of light as she is a ball of crazy. Supergiant is mentally unstable at best, and she's also fiercely loyal to Thanos like the rest of her order. Power-wise, she can phase through objects and people, and she's immune to physical damage, but those aren't her most impressive attributes. She also has the ability to read minds and control people, sometimes multiple beings at once. We didn't see any signs of Supergiant during Infinity War, and at first, that wasn't too surprising. It was easy to explain away Supergiant's absence with time constraints, but Redditor Cassawarosaur has an interesting theory about what she's doing during this time, and they believe Supergiant may have been closer than we actually thought. This theory originated when Cassawarosaur noticed something strange during one of the trailers for Avengers Endgame. What most people may have perceived as simply Thor exhaling may have actually been a female whisper saying, "I have telepathy." Thor's mouth doesn't move, and it sounds like someone's speaking rather than instrumental music. But which female character could have been responsible for this near-silent whisper? What if it was the sound of a character we haven't seen introduced into the MCU yet? Although Thanos is certainly not lacking in power, he can't be everywhere at once, which is why he has legions of minions to carry out his bidding. Surely he's not going to be the sole enemy of the remaining heroes during Endgame, and yet the timing doesn't seem right to introduce a bigger, badder villain. Instead, we could see reveal that Supergiant is alive, well, and working with the Mad Titan. Thanos might not be smart enough to figure out that he could have just wished for more resources instead of less people, but this doesn't mean he's completely stupid. Do you really think he went through Infinity War without any backup plan, or does it seem more likely he had a trick up his sleeve? Perhaps she didn't accompany her fellow Black Order members on mundane missions, which were easily handled, such as the boarding of the Asgardian ship, but just because you don't see Supergiant doesn't mean she isn't working her magic in some way. During the Endgame trailer, we saw Thor summon Stormbreaker way too close to Captain Marvel's head. Not cool, bro. It seems like he was testing her and sizing her up, but this theory claims it was really Supergiant trying to put her to the test. The line, "I have telepathy," might have been said by Supergiant to see if Captain Marvel could pick up on it. Thor being possessed by Supergiant might sound crazy, but there's actually a comic book precedent for this scenario. In the books, Supergiant does try to take control of Thor, and she plays an important role in the Battle of Wakanda by possessing people. Having Supergiant possess arguably the strongest member of the Avengers would be a huge asset to Thanos and an assurance he could pull off his plan. But don't worry, this theory has more than a possibly ghostly whisper as evidence. Let's talk about the fact that Thanos let Thor live despite killing his brother Loki and his best friend Heimdall. Why? He surely knows how incredibly powerful Thor is, as he's the son of Odin, and that he'd stop at nothing to avenge his people, so why wasn't Thor part of half of all the Asgardians he wiped out? Maybe Thor was more useful to him alive because it was his plan to have Supergiant take over his mind. Especially after experiencing such devastating losses, it seems like Thor would be more susceptible to mind control than ever before. And then there's the fact that Thor ends up running directly into the Guardians of the Galaxy, a group once connected to the Power Stone. Coincidence? His actions with the group seem cold and clouded by loss, but they could have also been carefully measured responses from Supergiant. When Gamora speaks ill of Thanos, Thor replies that she knows a lot about him. Could this have been Thor asking a question, or Supergiant furious about Gamora speaking ill of Thanos? It could be that Thor is less overcome with grief and more struggling to maintain the illusion that he's not being controlled by an ally of Thanos. And Thanos wanted to capture Gamora specifically because he knew she could tell him where the Soul Stone was located. So of course Supergiant is going to find Gamora and push her into the path of Thanos so he can get her to tell her where it's located. Otherwise, why is Thor so forthcoming about his plans with these strangers he just met? She knows Gamora is a skilled warrior and assassin and is unsure how powerful her companions are. Trying to fight with them at this point would have been a huge risk, and Supergiant played it smart by playing it safe. And then there's the fact that Thor does manage to split up the team by taking Rocket and Groot with him. As far as he knew, there wouldn't be any difficulties on this quest, so why did he need two extremely useful members of the team? Taking Rocket and Groot ultimately makes Gamora less safe and made it easier for Thanos to capture her. But if this is true, why would Thor want to forge Stormbreaker? This weapon has the power to summon the Bifrost, which could come in handy. Even when Thor encounters Eitri, he doesn't sound concerned about anything other than getting his weapon made. After all, it's not like Eitri would have volunteered to help Thanos make another weapon after the Infinity Gauntlet. Slaughtering all of his people and breaking his hands makes Thanos a less than ideal customer. Remember, if Supergiant is controlling Thor, she won't perish if he dies. There's no reason for her not to risk Thor's body while forging Stormbreaker. Plus, Supergiant isn't exactly known for making rational, level-headed decisions. If Thor was thinking clearly, he might have tried to come up with another way to get the weapon forged without endangering his life, but he didn't. Throwing yourself into a magic forge is pretty crazy, but it's the kind of thing Supergiant would definitely do. And when Eitri warns Thor it'll kill him, Thor replies, "Only if I did." It would actually make a lot more sense if someone controlling Thor said that instead of the God of Thunder himself. He's a bit hot-headed at times, but he's hardly suicidal and has a decent sense of self-preservation. It's also possible that Supergiant's intervention kept Thor alive for longer than he would have been otherwise. Sure, Thor's a god, but outer space isn't known for being particularly habitable. Yet, he survived long enough to get rescued by the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he survived the Forge in order to create Stormbreaker. Although she may not shed any tears if he passes away, it's in her best interest to keep him alive as long as possible. And after Thor successfully forges Stormbreaker, how does he know to head to Wakanda? Despite visiting a few times, he isn't overly familiar with Earth, and it seems implausible that he knows what a huge source of technology and power Wakanda is. He hasn't been back to Earth since T'Challa took Wakanda public, yet somehow Thor knows to head to exactly the place where the remaining children of Thanos are located? Honestly, we hate to say it in a movie with superhumans, but that seems unbelievable. Some fans insist Thor could sense the Mind Stone, but that frankly sounds like a pretty weak explanation, and why wouldn't he have gone to Titan where the Time Stone was if he could have sensed the presence of an Infinity Stone? With her psychic powers, Supergiant could have easily figured out that Vision and Scarlet Witch were getting ready to destroy the Mind Stone when things got really bad. For that reason, it makes sense that she would have avoided interacting with them and going after the Mind Stone on her own. The risk was too high, and she was better off waiting for Thanos. In order to look inconspicuous while she waited for the Mad Titan to show up, she focused on having Thor destroy some of the Outriders. This made Thor look unsuspicious and avoided setting off any alarm bells for the surviving characters. From the outside, it looked like Thor was there to help the rest of the heroes with the fight. But despite being one of the most powerful characters, Thor still doesn't directly take on the Black Order. Even when Corvus Glaive attacked Vision, Thor was nowhere to be found. When Thor can't avoid a confrontation with Thanos any longer, it's kind of strange that Thanos doesn't fight harder against him. Instead of using the Time Stone to pause time, teleporting elsewhere, or doing pretty much anything else, Thanos allows himself to be struck by Thor. During Thor Ragnarok, Hela crushed Mjolnir with one hand, so someone as powerful as Thor likely knew Stormbreaker wouldn't kill him unless he hit him in the head. Seeing Thor deliver such a blow to Thanos would have convinced anyone watching that Thor is definitely a good guy and not possessed by a member of the Black Order. Thor made a big show about wounding Thanos to hurt him instead of actually taking the guaranteed victory by hitting him in the head. But instead of Thor showing terrible judgment and being blinded by vengeance, it's possible this was Supergiant doing exactly what Thanos instructed her to do. As we mentioned earlier, Thanos can't be everywhere at once, and having a member of the Avengers under his control would be a huge boon to the operation. This would ensure the decimation doesn't get undone, and Thanos remains victorious. The Russo brothers have confirmed that despite not seeing her during Infinity War, Valkyrie is still alive. Not only that, but her character is going to be returning for Avengers Endgame. It's possible that Valkyrie will be the one to realize that something is off with Thor because she's worked closely with him in the past. And while the rest of Thor's friends are mourning their losses and licking their wounds, Valkyrie likely isn't. She lost her fellow warriors long ago and subsequently fled Asgard soon after. Her experiences with Thor and her eyes unclouded by grief may help her spot some things the other characters might miss. But knowing is only half the battle, and she and the other heroes will be forced to deal with an insanely powerful enemy who's inhabiting the body of Thor. With all of Thor's abilities at Supergiant's disposal, we have a feeling nowhere in the universe is going to be safe. So what do you think about the idea that Thor may be under the influence of Supergiant's mind control? Let us know what you think of this over-the-top complicated theory in the comments section, and then click on the subscribe button for more videos from us here at CBR. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.